Are you trying to get a funeral home here on Nantucket? Is that the idea?
I'm trying to get funeral service here, local funeral service. Not necessarily a home at this point, but a place where a service building where bodies can be prepared either for cremation or for a wake and a funeral. And then also it would have a garage for the hearse. It would have a storeroom for the chemicals, the caskets,
isn't that
the
a funeral
shipping
home?
grapes. No.
What's the difference?
The difference is a funeral home in Massachusetts has a chapel,
Oh, okay.
and we don't have to have
All
it.
right, okay.
I'm asking that we be exempted from that law so that we just have a service building with an apartment overhead to house the person that's going to be taking care of the funeral service.
All right, now, does that mean that it's town-owned?
No,
You're
not
doing
at all.
it. You want to do it privately.
Yes.
So
we're
what's the
going to
problem?
ask. Well, which there's a lot of problems.
Okay, what are they?
We're going to petition the town for some land, and I think that's reasonable, seeing how this will be a public service, and it's something that the people want and need. I think the problems are that we're getting a lot of pushback from the funeral service industry, from the funeral directors of Massachusetts, and also the Cemetery Association of Massachusetts.
What pullback would that be?
Well, they have said to the committee, the Public Health Committee, it's a slippery slope. If we let Nantucket do this, then every town without a funeral home, or every town whose funeral home closes, will want to do this. And that's just silly.
Of course it is.
It's just silly
I
because...
mean, we're 30 miles out at sea. What do you expect us to do? It's not like we can go to another town and do it.
Well, exactly, because you can always go to another town
Yeah,
off island.
right.
Then one of the other questions was, well, this is clearly a conflict for Mrs. Stover to do this. She has a funeral director's license, and she's just looking to get back into the business. Well, I'm a 62-year-old grandmother. I'm not looking to get back into that. And besides, my focus when I was in funeral service, it was service, not the funeral business. And there is a difference.
Well, why doesn't one of these guys that are complaining that own a funeral service or home, why don't they come over here and start one?
The cost is prohibitive. You know, to start a business here, it's ridiculous. The rents that you're going to pay.
But isn't it something that if you don't, that you could pretty much name your price? I mean, this is Nantucket.
Gino, they're naming their price now,
That's
they're
right.
off island,
And they're still getting huge bucks.
and they don't have to pay the overhead. They don't have to pay the rent.
Oh, I see. So they're charging a
Yes.
lot just to get the body over there and to do it. I see. And they want to try to keep it that way
Yes.
as long as possible.
And the
doesn't-
other problem is that I'm asking to be exempted from the law that says that if you want to have your license, if you want to use your license in Massachusetts, you need to own 10% of a funeral home. And our funeral home will be non-profit. The funeral service will be non-profit. So nobody will own the home except for, the public. It'll be.
But you said it wasn't going to be owned by the town.
It's not going to be owned by the town. No.
So it would be a non-profit
A
organization.
non-profit organization.
And what, do we know how much an average,
Yes.
what would that average cost be for a funeral?
To build a building.
Oh, okay.
To build a building
Yeah.
and get everything all set up will be under $500,000. We have a gentleman who has committed to build the building for cost, and he estimates it'll be $300,000 or less if we have the land.
Okay, well, that's pretty good then.
Yeah, you can't build a house on your.
So would that, in turn, allow people who might not be able to afford a lower cost? I mean, would it be
Yes.
scalable?
It would be scalable. In other words, it would be a nonprofit. So the services would be at whatever it costs, minus whatever it costs to buy the chemicals, to have the caskets on stock, and to pay the funeral director.
For those people who wonder why we're in this situation, we had a funeral home,
Oh, we did, yes.
didn't we?
Yes.
And for how long was that funeral home around for?
Over 100 years, since 1878.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Was it in the
One
same
family.
The Lewis
One
family?
family. There was Ezra Lewis, Israel Lewis. The names are just one after another.
We only needed one. Is that why?
Right. At one point, we did have 3 undertakers.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. Benjamin Sheffield was one of them. But the Lewis family basically took over for everyone, and they just stayed in one family for all those years.
Unreal. And I see Mr. Lewis, he's still around.
He is. Yes.
He was a real nice guy, wasn't he?
He's a wonderful guy.
He's a wonderful, generous.
He's generous. He, as far as I know, he never dunned anyone for payment. I know he had hundreds of thousands of dollars in accounts receivable when the doors closed. Over the years, he sold off all his property to keep the doors open, because cremation has become probably the number one choice for people. And it's more affordable than a full, casket burial. And so the money that you would have made maybe a little bit of a margin on a casket, he wasn't making. And he sold off all his land to keep the doors open. I mean, he's just the most, I can tell you, probably, I don't know how many children have died on Nantucket, but I know when John Stover and I lost our son in 1978, Ricky never sent us a bill for nothing, absolutely nothing. He's the most generous spirited, kind-hearted, compassionate man. I mean, he's the reason I went into funeral service.
Oh, did you work for him?
Oh no, I didn't work for him.
Why did you go? What was the reason? How did that come about?
I was so impressed with who they used to call Old Eddie Lewis, his grandfather. Mm-hmm. When Ricky's grandmother died, I remember my grandfather talking to Old Eddie at the drugstore. And he said, "So is somebody coming over from the vineyard to help you?" He says, "No, we take care of our own." And to me, that's, oh my God, that's just, I mean, that is funeral service. That's not the funeral business. It's, in my faith, there are corporal works of mercy, and burying the dead is one of them. And I was just so in awe of their compassion and their strength and their just willingness to serve. And that's why I wanted to go into funeral service. So, and I loved it.
But you didn't stick with it.
Well, no, I moved back.
Oh,
I moved back
see.
here.
Oh, okay.
It's what I did before I came back.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. How long do you think? What's now? If we get past that, what do we need to do next?
Well, it's been reported out favorably from the first committee, the Public Health Committee. Mm-hmm. That was a joint committee, the Senate and the House, and that has been reported out favorably, and now it goes to Committee 2. And then it goes to Committee 3. And Tim Madden, our representative, says that Committee 3 is where things get hung up. So hopefully, I'm really praying that it just kind of sails through the next 2 committees, that it makes sense to people, and that the testimony that we've given and the letters and things from the public that have sent their experiences and things, I'm hoping that stands and that people understand what it is we're trying to do.
All right, so let's say they do it. They allow us.
Yes.
Aren't you going to have some pullback here on where to put it?
No.
What about the
I don't
zoning
think so.
for something like this?
Oh, no.
A crematorium
No
here?
problem. Well, we're not even talking crematorium.
But wouldn't we need one?
We don't need one.
But we should have one.
Well, a lot of people think we should, which is why I made that as part of the home rule. Now, we could, if at some point the people want one, I put it in the home rule so that we have that option at some later date. But let's just get the funeral service started first.
Where would we put it?
That's a good question. One of the parts of the exemption that I'm asking for is that it be put anywhere on the island that we feel it might be appropriate. Our cemetery space is very limited, and Mass law says right now it has to be associated with a cemetery, either private or public, that has been doing burials for 5 years.
Well, that's why you got to have a crematorium.
Well,
because you don't have any space.
You have to understand that these rules were set up in the 40s and 30s and whatever. So times have changed.
Yeah.
We have had 37 or 39 deaths already this year. 3 have been burials. The rest are cremations.
Wow.
It's all the people can afford now.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the prices are extraordinary.
Are they? What? You have any idea? If you live on Nantucket and you die, and you want to have a, well, let's just say you just want to be cremated.
Yes.
How much is that going to cost?
Right now, well, when Mr. Lewis had his service, it was around $3,500 for a direct cremation, and that paid for the funeral director and his staff, the transport of the body, the shipping container, being picked up on the other side, transport on the steamship, being transported from Hyannis to the crematory, and that's how much it costs with permits and
All right.
filings and all those sorts of things. Now, it's more than that,
Much more?
substantially more.
Wow. Now, if we do it, we would try to keep the price as low, if not lower than that, possibly?
Oh, way lower.
Way lower.
Way lower.
Well, I think,
The other part of cremation, though, Gino, is that we have a very large Hispanic population here,
oh yeah.
and cremation is abhorrent to them.
Oh, I see.
They want burial. They don't want cremation.
Well, where can we put them?
We are expanding one of our cemeteries right now, the Newtown Cemetery, across from the Boys Club, and the Cemetery Commission has been really diligent about trying to find more cemetery space, increasing what we have, figuring out where the bodies are buried, and charting all of that, finding out if we have any available lots left, making sure that if it's a piece of flat ground, that there isn't actually an unmarked grave there. So they have a lot of work to do, which they've done a fabulous job in the last 3 years, but there's a lot more work to do.
Do you see a time where we actually start stacking people? Instead
do
of
you
instead of putting one person in.
Oh, we already do that, honey.
How many do you stack?
That's-
on top?
you can
mean
do-
you can do stackables?
You could double deep, yes. It's a double deep option.
Oh, all right.
That is available. It is available at the Prospect Hill.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's available at when I was on the Prospect Hill board, I said, well, do we have a double deep option? And they go, what's that? And I explained it to them because that's what they have off island. And so now they do that. St. Mary's does it, and so will the town cemeteries.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But you have to have it's like an additional $1,000 or whatever to have that option available. So the first burial will take place at 8 feet, and then the second.
You got to plan on it.
Yes.
But if it gets to the point where, is it possible to dig people back up and then start stacking them again?
We're not going to do that.
No, that would be
We're
just.
not. We're not.
Never. You'll never see a time.
Well, I'll be dead, and
Oh,
the
yeah,
island
I
will probably the cemetery will be this big by
I
then.
mean, what are we going to
No.
do? I mean, at some point, we're going to fill up every space that we can bury people in, and
Well,
it has to
then-
be cremation.
Then we might have a passive golf course with from the land bank.
Oh, interesting.
I would suggest that the land bank make that available.